So here we are over to the haul truck, and this is chapter 44. When I had left you off in chapter 43, I had cut the frame rails, but in some of the clips you had seen the frame pulled apart, and where I had buffed off or ground off the POR 15 paint that I had painted the frame rails with. This is this clip that I'm interrupting here to kind of introduce this chapter of the haul truck. I am grinding a bevel onto the frame rails for the weld. So what I'm going to do is go on and explain that in a later clip. That bevel will be explained and how I did it and the angles that I did it at, and the land that I put into it will be explained in a later clip. But basically this chapter is going to be about getting this back together, welded out, and how I did it and why I did it and the techniques that I used in doing it. There was a lot of viewer input into welding on this thing, so that will be explained in later clips. Just a short clip here to kind of show you. I'm trying to get it back into position. It's going to take some moving around and wiggling and shimming up the jack stands, etc., like that, to get it back into its proper alignment. I've got the level across here not as a level but as a straight edge. It's coming across this frame rail. It just shows me how much I've got to pick this end up. So what I'll do is I'll jack this end up so that it's kind of level, or not. Let's not call it level. Let's call it even with that frame rail, and then go back and adjust the back side, and then pull the string line. Now I've already pulled the string line. You can see the string line is clamped onto the frame up there. What I did is mark the frame at a 1/2 inch increment in from the inside of the frame rail when I originally did it, to get that point on the door to pull the string line. That one over there is kind of close. Of course there's a gap, but it has to go back that way, but it is close to being in line and even. Let's not call it level, let's call it even with the front rail. But I'll bring you back as I progress. It's just a time-consuming process. You got to kind of jack it up. It kind of throws the other side off a little bit, so you got to go back, readjust, come back, readjust, pull string lines, but it'll get there. Okay, over here to the haul truck. What I did, this came in this morning, kind of repositioned it. Okay, here we go again. I'm going to insert another clip. The thing though with the welding, I told you in chapter 43 that I was going to TIG in the root. Well, I had some response, viewer response, and they said told me not to do it, not to TIG in the root, to go with stick welding, because TIG puts too much heat into those frame rails. The person that told me that, I believe in and have faith in them, so I did not do that. I TIG tacks on the thing to get it in place, and then what I did is kind of stitch welded it with a stick and then MIG the rest of it out. I'm not going to get into what's better or what's worse and what people think or don't think about it. That's the way I did it. There's going to be a couple of more inserts in here, but let me address one issue right off the bat. There has been people that told me that you cannot weld a frame on a truck. Other people have told me that's bullshit and you can do it. I don't know what, I've never seen the rules on it. I've never seen that DOT book, or actually they're not a book, it's books, and they're huge. And I'm not going to go get it and go through it to find out what the case is. What I'm going to do is just weld it. I welded this thing out, and I'm going to try and blend it out so that you can't tell that it was welded. Whether it's legal or not legal, I'm not going to get into it. Here's what I know for a fact. I wanted to increase the weight rating on my trailer, and I cannot do it. I cannot do it because you have to be certified by the manufacturer to do it, and that sticker that's on trailers has to be an authorized sticker from the manufacturer that relists the trailer serial number and weight rating. That's the only way it can be accepted. Now, somebody asked me after I found that out, and I found that out from a New York State inspection station, not a inspection station that's authorized by the state, but an actual New York State inspection station. They told me that. Somebody asked me after that, what about homemade trailers? You can build your own trailer and take it down there and get it weight rated. I have no idea how that works, but I do know that if you have a manufactured trailer by a trailer manufacturer, and it has a sticker on it for a DOT weight rating, you cannot change that weight rating as an individual. It has to be done by the manufacturer or an authorized manufacturer representative, and the sticker has to be an approved sticker for the DOT from that manufacturer to relist the weight rating. When I got the inner rails for this, that is a truck an authorized truck remanufacturer. In other words, they modify trucks to accept different things. They lengthen frames, they shorten frames. I know, I asked him about it, and the guy that I talked to didn't know my question about whether you could or could not weld a truck frame. But he says that when they do it, they are authorized by the truck manufacturer, and they have a listing or a label that they stick into the truck door frame, certifying that it was done by them and it's authorized. So here's the deal. I don't know whether welding truck frames is legal or not legal. I'm not going to get into it. What I'm going to do, it's done, and I'm going to disguise it. It's going to be buried underneath a sleeper and behind saddle tanks, and there's going to be an inner frame rail that's bolted into it, so on the inside you can't see it. So that's that. It was a little better. Got the pieces in there. Had to do a little grinding. What I did is I TIG tacks on them. Then I took a stick welder, 7018, and kind of little stitch welded it, and then welded it out the rest of the way with MIG. And I'm kind of capping it off with MIG just so that I can, I have more control with MIG. Doesn't get as hot, and I can kind of fill in the divots so that I can smooth it out so that it can't be seen it's the outside exposed rail. The inside will be buried by that inner rail, but the outside will be exposed. But then again, it will be underneath the sleeper and behind the saddle tank. So hopefully you can't see it. Probably if the DOT actually did an inspection on the thing and I had to drive it over a pit, I will kind of concentrate on that bottom so that you can't see that it was welded. So, but they shouldn't be able to see, they won't be able to see the top or the outside of it because of the sleeper and or the saddle tanks. But I'll bring you back. I just did this one side. Gonna go over and work on the other side. It's after lunch, so I let this, it's cooled off actually. Not that there was that much heat in it to begin with, but it cooled off. And but I'm gonna go over there, do work on that, come back over here. I'll alternate sides so that I don't build up too much heat into those frame rails. Bring you back. Okay, back over here to the truck. What the issue is, there's not an issue, but what I've got to get around is these new pieces of frame rail are just slightly smaller than it, and I'm trying to put them in so you really don't notice it. You know, I've got to get that weld. What I'm trying to do is taper out the weld so that it kind of blends into it, so that you don't see any kind of a seam. But I've got a little hump here where the frame, this rail is smaller than the existing rails. But I'll get it. Again, it's going to be buried under the saddle tanks and under the sleeper. Behind the saddle tanks and under the sleeper. Let me, I'll shut you off and take you over, show you the other side. It's still a work in progress, so don't think this is it. There's a front one on the passenger side. Now, I've still got to weld out the bottom. I've got to get on a creeper and get underneath there and weld out the bottom, but this one is the closest to being done that on the sides and top that any of them are right at this point. But again, it's still a work in progress. Over here, the haul truck, and I'm still working on the frame rail extensions that I put in there. You know, welding it out, just trying to grind out the welds so you can't see them, even though they're going to be buried behind the saddle tanks and underneath the sleeper. I still kind of want to cover my bases because I don't want some DOT inspector, if I ever got stopped, to see that those welds were, I had welded the frame. What I did is I just stuck the inner liners or the inner frame rails back in there just to make sure that they were test fitted. I'm trying to be careful and not heat it too much, but I just don't want it to distort. So one of the things that I had to do is go in and run a bead on the inside, because I put a land, when I ground the frame rails, both the new frame rail and the old existing frame rail, I beveled it so that I could build up weld in there, but I put a land on it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, is over exaggeration on how thick the frame rail is. But what I did is beveled it out, but there was a straight edge on the bottom part of it. So again, when I went in, I left that straight edge in there, that land in there, so that I could line them up. If you would tapered it off too much, you might distort the length of this piece or the length of the frame rail, and you won't get an accurate fit up. So you've got flat spots, square flat spots butting up against square flat spots. But when I put that bead in there, I didn't get full penetration on it because it left so much of a land. So what I did is just went back in there and ran a little bead up in there, and then to help strengthening it and to just fill in that little gap. But again, just put the frame rails back in, the inner frame rails back in, just to make sure that I am not distorting it from heat. But I'll bring it back. I'm trying to round up a mag drill that I can drill both frames at the same time. So what I would do is finish the welds, paint it out, paint it with that POR 15, both the inside and the outside of the inner frame rail. Put them together, mag drill them, bolt them up, and then I can finish it off. There's some sealer that I'm going to put around the inner frame rail just to seal it off, so that try to prevent moisture, and in my case a bunch of salt in the wintertime, from getting in between those two frame rails, the outer original frame rail and the inner rail, and creating a pocket in there where rust is going to start, especially with salt. If I get salt water brine in there, it will start. But hopefully between the POR and that sealant that I'm going to use, it's a 3M type of body panel sealant. But anyways, between those things, hopefully I can prevent that from happening. I just got to show you a funny little thing. This is a older can of POR 15. I can't get the top off of it. I've got pounded screwdrivers in there. I tried to pry it up with a pair of pliers using the rim. It just tears the top off. There's still probably an eighth of a can, quarter of a can, and I was going to paint them inner frame rails, and just having a bitch of a time getting the top off of it. But this is going to be the last use for this can, because the top will never go back on again. So here they are, the inner frame rails painted. Now they're only painted on the one side, the side that'll go back against the original frame and the filler pieces. So I can paint the inside of them after they're installed. I was never able to get that lid off of it. What I did is was able to open it up, and I just poured it on there and brushed it out afterwards. I didn't spray these things, I just brushed them. But anyways, there they are, ready to go in as soon as I'm done with the other thing. Okay, what I just done is I got out the spray gun, put some of the POR 15 into it, and painted the inside. Now, I've still got a little work to do, sanding, no welding, on the outside of it, but I'm probably ready to put the rails on the inside. I'm gonna pick up a mag drill. A guy is letting me borrow it. What I did was, while I had the gun out, I sprayed these two rails that go on the inside. Now, as you know from a previous video, sorry, I kind of fucked up and started spraying that shit without a mask on, and it was really obnoxious. But anyways, what I did was, while I had the gun out, I sprayed a second coat on these things. I had taken some sandpaper, I think it was 160, just scuffed it up and sprayed a second coat on it. But those are those rails that will go on the inside. Now, I've only sprayed or painted just what is the outside of these rails or the inside. So inside, where it'll go against the two paints will match together. Then when it's all bolted up and in place and these things are finished off, I will paint the outside of these again, and then the inside of these rails and the bolts that go onto them. But anyways, that's where I am. So I come in here this morning after I had painted that the inner part of it last night and did a second coat on those frame rails, and noticed right away, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to notice it, but the new can of paint that I got is semi-gloss and the old can was gloss, and it's very noticeable. Now, it annoys me that I never noticed it when I bought that, and I bought that quite a while ago, that second can. It annoys me that I never picked up on that when I bought it. But anyways, it's got to be painted over because POR 15, they recommend that you paint over it unless it's not exposed to sunlight, because I guess sun rays will lighten it or fade it or have some effect on it. So they recommend, if it's exposed to sunlight, to paint over it. So it's going to be, the frame rails are going to be painted over anyways. I had probably only intended to paint the frame rails where they're going to be exposed, but now I'm going to have to do them all, but that's no big deal. Okay, so here's the inner liners back in place and clamped in there. I'm going to mark out where I'm going to drill these things. There's probably going to be 12 bolts on each side. There's going to be 4 in the front between the existing frame rail, 4 on the back between the existing frame rail, and 4 in the middle in the new piece of frame rail. I know it's probably overkill, but that seems the strongest option to me, to do it that way. I'm going to be the one that is driving it, so I don't want it in the back of my mind all the time that I'm driving that the thing isn't supported sufficiently. So I've got both sides in there. I'll just walk you around and show you the other side. I still haven't gotten the mag drill yet. He hasn't called me to let me know that I can pick it up, but as soon as I get it, I'll get the holes cut through there. What I'm going to do is mark them out where I'm going to put them, just so when I get it, I can go right to it. I've probably got to go out and get some bolts too. I'm probably again, this is probably overkill because there's no shear strength on these things, because it's just holding it in place. I'll probably use grade 5 bolts on the thing. Again, probably don't have to. Could probably just use standard bolts and nuts on the thing, because again, there's not going to be any shear strength on it. It's just bolting the inner rail in place. But for peace of mind, I'll use grade 5, maybe 8. I'm not really sure, but there it is. So that's going to be it for this part. Thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe. If you feel like it and you think anybody else would be interested in it, share it with somebody.